Begged for her life, Detective.
Shut up!
She begged for her life.
Shut up.
And for the life of the baby inside of her.
Shut up!
He didn't know.
Oh, you with the box. What was in the box?
Yeah.
Oh, what's in the box?
Just told you.
And now for our feature presentation.
Well, okay, people, welcome back to the channel, or if it's your first time here, just welcome, period. We ended episode 2 with David Grush talking to Fox News about the UAP topic and the biological EBE bodies. Also had mentioned Trump's administration a couple of times. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Turkey Day, guys. Today's Thanksgiving. So yeah, happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you and your family had a great Thanksgiving. Let me ask you a question before I start the video. What do you guys think about Trump? As far as, do you think he would disclose this information? It has been a question for every administration since the late 40s. Every administration has been asked that question. And a lot of them made a lot of promises they couldn't keep. Do you think Trump can do it? Whoever does this, whatever president steps to the microphone and makes that announcement, that's history. That's infamy, period. What do you think? Yes or no? And if he does, what do you think is going to happen? No more questions. Let's jump in.
I got through my briefing, and at the end of the brief, he sat back in his chair and he said, "You know, Jay, you may wonder why I asked for this briefing." And he said, "What are the economic impacts of the president going to the microphone and telling the world we're not alone?" I have to think about those kinds of impacts in order to prepare if the president were to make that move.
34 leaders in the government, military, and intelligence communities are featured in a new documentary on unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs, also known as UFOs. This includes Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours.
They have both deactivated and activated nuclear weapons with both the United States and Russia.
These are otherworldly things that are performing maneuvers that haven't been seen.
The UAP activity surrounding nuclear weapons is not a historic issue. It's an ongoing issue.
The film The Age of Disclosure dives into the existence of non-human intelligent life, what these leaders know, and the stakes for the future of humanity. It's now streaming on Amazon Prime. Let's bring in Dan Farah, the director and producer of The Age of Disclosure. Dan, first of all, let's set this up. What is this movie about? What was your mission with this documentary?
Well, thank you for having me. So, like a lot of people around the world, I grew up curious about this topic, these big questions like, are we alone in the universe? Does the U.S. government know more about this matter than the public? And so I made this film in pursuit of the truth, and I interviewed 34 extremely high-level military, government, and intelligence officials who have direct knowledge of UAP as a result of the work for the government. And what they collectively revealed is an 80-year cover-up of the existence of non-human intelligent life, and the fact that the U.S. is in a high-stakes secret Cold War race with adversarial nations to collect and reverse engineer this technology of non-human origin. And the truth is really shocking.
What stood out to me, there's a lot of things that stood out to me that were pretty shocking. The amount of lawmakers, credible lawmakers, military members that were willing to open up to you over this 3-year period. How did you convince them all to go on the record and talk to you about what they knew?
Well, when I was doing my research and I was getting introduced to senior officials and having private conversations with them and learning the lay of the land, I started to quickly realize that there is, in fact, a lot of information these people have that can lawfully be disclosed, but historically they've been deterred from sharing that information. And what has caused them to avoid it is the cultural stigma in our country, the fear of being ridiculed or made fun of for talking about, UFOs and non-human intelligent life. On top of that, there is a group of people inside of the government and intelligence community who have kept this secret for 80 years, and they've made it clear that if you poke your head up and talk about this and tell the public, you'll have your reputation ruined, you'll have your career ruined, and then there's always a lot of physical threats that have been given to people to keep them silent. And so what I said to these interview subjects, these potential interview subjects, is what if I create a safe platform for you to speak up? What if I interview dozens of military, government intelligence officials who have direct knowledge of this as a result of working for the government, and you guys are all arm in arm, and you have safety in numbers, and you're collectively stepping up and sharing what you lawfully can with the public? Would that be a different scenario for you? And the answer collectively was yes. They all felt comfortable with that. And I made the movie in secrecy for several years. I didn't socialize outside of the interview subjects who was going to be in it. I told them so they could feel comfortable knowing who they were going to be intercut with and arm in arm with. We kept it under wraps. And I think this is the only way these people ever would have spoken up and shared their truths.
Now, as you mentioned, some of the officials in this movie claim that we are in this high-stakes secret arms race with both China and Russia over the retrieval of these UAPs. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, some of the officials I interviewed refer to it as the Manhattan Project on steroids because the stakes are so high. We know the intentions of adversarial nations like China are not good, and so it's critical that the U.S. lead in this technology race and come to understand this technology and how to use it before any adversaries do and before it is used for evil, essentially, for war, as opposed to the betterment of mankind.
Now, one of the officials in this film also alleges that President George H.W. Bush actually knew of contact between the military and non-human life from an Air Force base. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, one of the intelligence officials in the film goes on the record about a conversation he had directly with President Bush I about a encounter that occurred between Air Force and CIA officials and non-human intelligent life. There's a number of interview subjects in my film who reveal what past presidents have found out. So another big reveal is that Bush II contemplated going public shortly after 9/11, actually, about the fact that he had learned humanity is not alone in the universe, those base facts. And he contemplated it and decided ultimately it was better not to reveal that. Another interview subject reveals that President Trump almost revealed this base fact in his first administration. And to the extent that Steve Mnuchin, then Secretary of Treasury, asked the head of the U.S. government's UAP task force for a briefing and told him he was asking for that briefing so that he could assess what the economic impact would be if the president chose to go to the microphone and tell the world we're not alone.
Does the United States believe that there may be life outside of Earth?
What we believe is that there are unexplained aerial phenomena that have been cited and reported by pilots, Navy and Air Force, that these phenomena have, in some cases, had an impact on our training ranges, on our pilots' ability to fly, train, operate, and stay ready. That alone makes it a national security issue worth looking at. We don't know. We don't have the answers about what these phenomena are.
The government started running this despicable disinformation campaign against Lou. They actually told the American people that Lou Elizondo did not work there, and that was an outright lie.
After decades of public denial, the Pentagon now admits there's something out there, and the U.S. Senate wants to know what it is. UFOs, unidentified flying objects, are real.
The government has already stated for the record that they're real. I'm not telling you that. The United States government is telling you that.
I think it's a bit presumptuous and not arrogant for us to believe that there's no other form of life anywhere in the entire universe. Well, I've seen some of those videos from Navy pilots, and I must tell you that they are quite eyebrow-raising and might, in fact, be some type of phenomenon that is the result of something that we don't yet understand.
Is it possible that whatever we're seeing isn't from out there, it's from down there?
Whoever it is, they're here and they're operating here. And they have been operating here for a long time.
The legacy program was quietly behind the scenes pushing back, and they were creating bureaucratic hurdles. They were somehow able to block the funding that was approved for the UAP task force.
As Congress began hearing from whistleblowers in classified settings, they came to the realization of the existence of the legacy program.
Okay, here's that damn name again. Legacy program. About the fourth time we've heard that in 3 videos. I'm still not exactly sure what the legacy program is. You've got Lou talking about it. He's fixing to go into detail about it. Yet yesterday's video, you had Dr. Greer saying that Lou Elizondo was part of the legacy program. So is Lou pulling a psyop on the American public? Remember, that's what Dr. Greer's saying that Lou here is the master of misinformation. This was his specific job duty. He's part of legacy. Or is Dr. Greer full of shit, and is he pulling a psyop on it? Somebody's right and somebody's wrong. I mean, guys, you really have to give these people their flowers right now, I think. I kind of feel like a deaf, mute, and blind man that was taken by his hand, walked into a theater, sat in a seat, and for some reason expected to be able to tell somebody what film was playing on the screen. That's kind of what this feels like. So, you know what? Just bravo. Job well done, guys. Fucking bravo. I don't know. You decide.
Primary responsibility when he first emerged was to gaslight officials, gaslight Congress, and intercept witnesses.
That's a job, right? So
it's a very big job. And there are a lot of people like that out there in what we call the legacy UFO subculture. They're embedded. I mean, they're not going to wear a sign that say, hey, I'm from, this operation.
The main players in the legacy program have long been the Central Intelligence Agency, the United States Air Force, the Department of Energy, and major defense contractors. The Central Intelligence Agency is responsible for the oversight of the overall effort. The United States Air Force is responsible for field operations. These are the folks that are responsible for deploying within moments' notice anywhere in the world to go secure and retrieve crashed UAP. The defense contractors, they're responsible for the exploitation and the reverse engineering and analysis of the materials. And last but not least is the Department of Energy. They are the world's experts in anything that is related to either atomic or nuclear technology or anything that gives off radiation. As we brought whistleblowers to Congress, we learned that the legacy program was involved in a long-running secret war with other nations to collect and reverse engineer vehicles not made by humans. This is a very complicated geopolitical landscape where alliances and allegiances shift like sand in the desert.
We have seen highly credible U.S. government intelligence on the Soviet recovery of a crashed UAP in 1989. They recovered a Tic Tac-shaped UAP that was twice as big as the Tic Tac that was encountered by the USS Nimitz carrier strike group. And they did recover 4 bodies of humanoid aliens. The Soviet scientists took apart the recovered craft and discovered a very advanced directed energy weapon.
Technology can absolutely either revolutionize the way we do things or completely destroy everything that we know.
So I understand what Lou's saying here, and I wish to God it was true. There's nothing I would want more than to advance the human race. But we all know, at least here in the United States, top 2% are the wealthiest people in the country. It's only advancement if it makes somebody rich and they allow it to happen, period. If they don't allow it to happen, we'll never see it. I mean, that's how powerful the top 2% of this country is.
It often reminds me of the famous speech by President John F. Kennedy when we were right at the threshold of entering into a new era of discovery in space.
We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won, and they must be won and used for the progress of all people. For space science, like nuclear science and all technology, has no conscience of its own. Whether it will become a force for good or ill depends on man. And only if the United States occupies a position of preeminence can we help decide whether this new ocean will be a sea of peace or a new terrifying theater of war.
A lot of people have this assumption that the director of CIA is right onto everything and knows everything. The director of CIA is a political appointee. Quite frankly, they're temporary help. Whereas the director of science and technology at CIA, this is a career intelligence professional. That's where you're going to put the program.
I had a few private conversations with former President George Herbert Walker Bush in 2003. When he became the CIA director in the Ford administration, he was not briefed on the legacy UAP crash retrieval program, but he later found out about it, and he informed me that there were a number of crash retrievals that had taken place since the mid-1940s. And he also informed me of a UAP event that took place at Holloman Air Force Base in 1964, where 3 UAPs approached the Air Force Base. One of them landed on the tarmac, and a non-human entity interacted with uniformed Air Force and civilian CIA personnel. And when he asked for more details, he was told that he did not have a need to know.
Let that sink in for a minute. Really sit with that and let that sink in. That George Herbert Walker Bush did not have the need to know. This isn't a civilian like Trump was that came into administration. This is a bona fide World War II hero pilot. Think about that. Served his country in World War II, phenomenal pilot. And then he gets out of the war, he comes home, serves his country in the CIA, head of the CIA. And he's being told, you don't have the clearance, need to know, and you don't need to know. Let that sink in. I mean, just wow. That goes on to be our 41st president, and he still doesn't have the need to know. And if you don't know about Herbert Walker Bush, you should, but here's your clip just in case.
And one of the pilots selected to go on this particular raid was a 20-year-old named George, who actually was the youngest pilot in the United States Navy at the time. But despite his age, he'd actually flown in several combat missions already and had actually been shot down already and had to eject into the ocean and was subsequently rescued. George had run missions like this before, and so he was one of the first to actually make that dive down to the island. And as soon as he went below 8,000 feet, the island just erupted with anti-aircraft gun fire. And George almost immediately notices the side of his plane gets hit. But the plane's stable enough that he decides he's just going to keep on diving down and complete the mission. George releases 2 500-pound bombs that are direct hits on the radio tower he was assigned to bomb. But at this point, George's plane is now engulfed in flames. It can barely fly. Now, George had previously been shot down before, and what he learned from that is how important it was to fly as far away from the enemy as you possibly can before you bail out of your plane. Because if you bail too early and you land in the water right near where the enemy is, you'll just get captured. George abandons his controls, he leaps out the door, and he hits his head on the back of the plane as he leaps out. But his chute would open up right before he hit the water, and it would save his life. And so George turns around, so now he's facing towards the island, and to his horror, way off on the horizon, right near the edge of this island, are Japanese patrol boats that are speeding in his direction. He knows they're coming to get him and the other people that had jumped out of these planes. And he began mentally preparing himself for captivity. But before he could be captured, American aircraft come storming in overhead, and they go flying past him towards the island, and they start dropping bombs and strafing these Japanese boats that were coming out to get George. And for 2 hours, George used every ounce of strength he had to swim as far as he possibly could away from this island. But at some point, he was just so unbelievably exhausted, he just could not paddle any farther. And so he's just laying on this raft when he hears the sound of something coming out of the water, and he turns and he sees the periscope of an American submarine coming out of the water. And seconds later, the crew of this American submarine comes right up alongside him. They grab him out of the raft, they put him in the submarine, and he was saved.
Yeah, so if that man is on a need to know and he's not privy to this information, just who in the hell is in charge of the legacy program? It's a terrifying thought. If he's not worthy of knowing what the hell is going on, then who is? That should scare the shit out of a lot of people.
The Americans, the Russians, and the Chinese all have crash-retrieved craft from some other civilization.
It's not just national security. It's psychological, it's sociological, it's theological, and it's philosophical.
Did you go through the secret files, the UFO documents? Now that you're out of office, you can do anything you want, right?
True, yeah. But I'm not telling you.
In ATIP, we learned that the UAP event at the U.S. Army Airfield in Roswell in 1947 did actually occur. Think about the context for everything in 1947. The U.S. had just won World War II and was entering into a Cold War with the USSR. These UAP presented a technology of unfathomable power.
Back in 1947, when they looked at this and they realized it was real and they realized they had no idea what it was, this was something you couldn't just talk about, because the role of the President of the United States and the role of the military is to defend the United States and to protect its citizens. If this is something that they can't protect against, well, they're not going to come out and say it.
They don't want to tell the American public about the threat because there's nothing they can do about it.
Well, that is absolutely one reason for the last 70 years that no one in any administration has even attempted to breathe that these things are real. They're absolutely right. There's not one damn thing we can do with that technology.
It was only a couple months after Roswell that President Truman signed the National Security Act of 1947, which established both the Air Force and the Central Intelligence Agency. But it wasn't until a couple years later when Truman signed the Central Intelligence Agency Act that really endorsed the CIA to be able to run secret intelligence operations outside the normal routine oversight channels.
We're getting into the video here, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I thank you guys for coming here and hanging out. I know you can be at other places, watching other people do other things, but you're here with me today, checking this out, and I greatly appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time. Episode 4 is on its way.
We have a new student joining us today, and I know you all make him feel welcome. Say hello to Bahir Hassan Abdul Hakim. Uh-oh. Do not cook. Why don't you take a seat in Kyle's empty desk for now?
Okay.
No. Eric, what the hell is wrong with you?
What's wrong? Have you been checked for bombs?
All this talk of getting old is getting me down my